international speaker, business coach, trainer, activist and campaigner for political change in Scotland and the UK. And we're here tonight to talk about authenticity and the authenticity delusion. And I don't know how relevant these things will be, but I just wanted to mention a couple of things to do with my personal experience of you, Jacquie. And the first one was that whenever I hear you speak, or whenever I talk to you, I feel like I'm getting Jacquie, like no layers. I mean, so much so that when I first heard you speak on a little 2-minute video I think you were doing for Michael Neal, it prompted me to get in touch with you and ask if you wanted to chat. And that was well before I was in the habit of sending emails to me and asking them to speak to me. I'm quite happy doing it now, but that was perhaps the first time I did it, and I just felt so drawn to actually get in touch with you. And I feel like that's going to be relevant to what we're talking about tonight. And the other thing was, from the outside, the way it looks is that you get so much done. It looks like you make such a lot happen, and it kind of looks like that time period from deciding you're going to do something to actually putting it out in the world is somehow a lot shorter than the rest of us. And I have a feeling that's something to do with like authenticity and freedom to take inspired action and stuff like that. So I just wanted to mention like my personal experience of you, and then really just hand over to you and ask you to tell us a bit about your experience and, you know, why you want to talk about this, why it's so important to you.
Yeah, I love that, Emma. I love that you're now in the habit of getting in touch with people you don't know anymore. It's just brilliant.
I can't believe I ever had any thinking about it.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And thank you for that lovely introduction and for asking me to speak, because this is something that is just so important. I can't tell you how important it is, and what I'd love to do tonight is just sort of take everybody on a bit of a journey, of my journey of being, you know, it's just being who you are. I grew up in between sort of two brothers, and I always had a very strong sense of self. I never thought of myself as male or as female. I just was Jacquie. That's who I was. Or occasionally Jacqueline if my mother was angry with me. And I just lived from a space of enjoying what I was doing when I was doing it. I had so much self-belief that at the age of 15, I started at a fanzine and I interviewed all the punk bands that were around at the time. So I blagged my way into speaking to Susie and the Banshees and the Cure and the Stranglers and the Police and all of these crazy bands. And we created this fanzine and we sold it in record shops. So this is me as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, just living from this lovely space of, I can do that. And I just did it. And then I went into nursing and did nursing and midwifery. Loved it, absolutely loved it. I knew that I was here to make a difference, and God knows what that difference was, but I knew I was here to make a difference. And I loved being a nurse and I loved being a midwife. But I wasn't settled, and I listened to that. I listened to that unsettled voice that said, there's more to you. There's more than who you think you are. And I'd seen all these drug reps coming into the hospital peddling their legalised drugs. And I thought, I could do that. And I started working in the pharmaceutical industry, and I worked there for about 28 years. And it was fascinating because working in that environment, that corporate environment, was the gradual undoing of my confident self, which was something I didn't see at the time. And it was only something that on reflection I can see now, that I found it difficult to be me because the environment was very, very male dominated. And somebody's doing their ironing.
I've got them.
That's lovely. So it was an environment that I thought I was comfortable in, but obviously in reflection I just wasn't. Because I started to develop all sorts of kind of sabotage behaviours, as you do when you don't feel comfortable, but you can't put your finger on what it is that is making you uncomfortable. But I had moments where I just loved what I was doing, really, really loved it. You know, everything from sales to training to marketing, and laterally doing sort of government affairs. And I loved the difference that I was making. And then I had my children. And it was amazing, even having the kids, how I lost my sense of self. I lost my confidence. But not in such a way that I could say to you, oh, I'm unconfident. Or, because I still got stuff done. But I forgot who I was. I forgot what made me me. I mean, I remember taking Megan, my first child, out of the hospital, and being really worried and concerned that I didn't know how to strap her into the car seat. And you think, how silly, but fearful, fearful thoughts that I'd never, ever, ever noticed before. And that, I shrugged them off and I didn't take much notice of them. But gradually over the years, there was a build-up and more of a build-up. And then my mum and my dad weren't well. My dad passed away, my mum passed away. And I got this opportunity with the corporate job I was in, either to move down to London to do corporate government affairs down there, or to take redundancy. And I just thought, you know what, it's time for me to do something different. And I took that leap of faith. And at the time that I took that leap of faith, despite having also studied for 15 years NLP and been an NLP trainer, I knew that I hadn't found what I was looking for. I knew there was something missing. And at that point, I went on a weekend, and it was with Michael Neal and Paul McKenna. And I went down with my wish list for Paul McKenna to make me skinny, you know, all the usual things you want Paul McKenna to do to your head. And I didn't come out with that. I was pissed off. I was so pissed off. But what I did get was this huge insight. And I didn't even know what it was at the time. I had no clue. I woke up on the Sunday morning, Michael Neal had said something. There was only 6 of us. And Michael Neal had said something on the Saturday. And I started to cry. And I thought, oh God, what's this about? Next morning I woke up and I had this visual of a white flag on one side of my brain. Oh, hello, cutie. A white flag on one side of my brain and a white flag on the other. And I could hear this word, surrender. And I had never been a spiritual person. You know, I believed in something greater than, but I would never have said the word God. You know, I would never have said any of those things. And I told Michael Neal this, and he just said to me, I love when things show up as literal as that. I just thought, the guy's a nutter. You know, and I just forgot about it. And then at the same time, I was creating these 2 businesses, a for-profit and a not-for-profit. There was all sorts of fears and concerns about, after 35 years of a salary dropping in every single month into my bank account, am I going to make money? Am I going to be able to do, I've got 3 kids, they're all going to be going to uni soon, am I going to be able to pay for that? We have a mortgage. But despite all of that, I seemed to attract business. And before I knew it, within sort of a year, both businesses were pulling in 6-figure sums. Clients were happy with what I was doing, but I still wasn't happy. It wasn't me. And the result of it not being me, I found trying to create new business, like find clients and speak to clients to bring them in. This is corporate clients, I'm talking about blue chip organisations. I just didn't want to do it. I really just didn't want to do it. It felt empty. It felt as though it felt as though I was putting myself out with a comfort zone that wasn't going to nourish me and was reminding me of my corporate experience in the past. And then I came across some of Sid's stuff. And that was it. Like I knew that was it. I knew that once I heard the principles behind how life really works, something struck me. And I just thought, that's it. This is where I have to look. This is what I have to understand. And so I enrolled in the course with One Thought. And after the first weekend of being in the One Thought course, I actually took my businesses off the internet. So my 6-figure businesses, the income started going like this. But at the same time that my income was decreasing, my well-being was increasing phenomenally. It was almost as if there were lessons that I was to learn that I hadn't learned yet, that would peel away who I thought I was and help me see the potential of who I can be. And I kept those businesses off the internet for about 2 years. Never at any moment did I think that everything wasn't going to be okay. Never at any moment did I worry that I wouldn't get business again. And there were moments where it did bubble up inside of me, but because I knew it was just thought, I thought, let it go. We were fortunate, we had money in the bank to support us. Not a lot, but enough. And it helped me see my relationship to money. It helped me see my relationship to myself. It helped me see my relationship to business, to creativity, to self-doubt, to procrastination. Honestly, the journey was just, it was phenomenal. And I know that I was in that position because I had so much to learn. And it was fascinating because what I found, Emma, was sitting down and writing on a piece of paper, this is what my business is and this is how it's going to work and this is what it's going to do, is one way to create a business. And that's what I did with my 2 businesses previously. But what's happened with the businesses I have now is I found myself doing what these businesses are before I even considered what they were meant to be. And I'm still catching up with myself in the sense that I'm now writing the websites to fit what it is I'm doing. And I'm not forcing it, because I've seen that every time I try to create or I try to force something, the tension that surrounds that really, really limits what you can do. I was driving the other day there, and I should be a long distance lorry driver actually. I get so many insights when I'm driving. And I was driving along the road and I had this idea for a programme. I thought, oh, I really need to do that. And I started to think about it. And I remembered the door that closed on me in my very first day at primary school was a big sliding door. And at the minute that I thought I need to create this, I had this visual of this big sliding door closing me off, as if to say, not yet, don't overthink it. And I left it, and in 24 hours, I'd written the programme. It just came to me. I wrote it down, I slept on it, I got the page set up, and that was it. So working from that space, it's easy to create. It's easy to make things happen. So as far as being authentic, another huge sort of, I get a lot of sort of visual insights. And I remember having a conversation with Linda Pransky about something. And as she was talking to me, I got this image of me just standing, and I get a lot of battle insights as well. I think it's because of my brothers making me watch movies to do with war. But there was I was nailed to the ground with a sword, nailed top to bottom, couldn't move. And labels were falling from the sky. And some of them stuck, and some of them didn't. And in that moment, Emma, I realised that the labels that we apply to ourselves are so temporary and so changeable. Why limit yourself? Why limit who and what you are and you can become by setting fixed labels? So authenticity to me is the ability to be anything I need to be in any given moment that is congruent with me and my heart. That's why it's easy for me just to be me. Because I get fed up trying to be who I thought I was and what other people expected of me. It's just so much more relaxing and freeing to just show up and see what happens and have these crazy conversations and see where they flow and create from that space of no judgment.
I'm curious, just listening to you. Does it seem to you that your experience of having access to that sense of yourself and that well-being, that confidence and stuff like that, does it seem to you that you're having all access to all of that stuff as a teenager, at the age of 15, 16, 17, whatever? Did that make it easier is your sense that made it easier to recognise when you found it again? Does that make sense as a question?
It does, Emma, and I can say to you, to answer that intellectually, I don't know. I couldn't. It makes sense to think of it that way, but it wasn't anything that I was cognizant of while it was happening. On a hindsight perspective, that would make sense. That sense of ease and flow. But as a teenager, there's always self-doubt as well. So there may not have been self-doubt, and there was self-doubt when I was a teenager. There was a need for approval. There was a fear of judgment. That was all there. Whereas now, I honestly don't care. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. And that's okay. If you like what I'm saying, that's great. If you don't like what I'm saying, that's fine too. If you're screaming and shouting at me, that's okay. I don't have to get involved. If you're giving me a hug, it's wonderful. I'll happily get involved.
Was there a moment when that changed for you, when you realised that you aren't invested anymore in whether people like you or not?
It's just funny. I just find it funny. I don't think there was a particular moment. I think it's a gradual undoing of self. There wasn't a finger snapping, here we go. It was just this gradual undoing of me, of who I thought I was. And realising that what I bring to the world in terms of my coaching or my business consultancy, that's the brand of me. That's just me. And some people will like that and some people won't. And it's no dissimilar to listening to a piece of music and enjoying one piece of music over another. There's nothing on it. Yet for years we're conditioned to believe there is something on that. If someone doesn't like you, there must be something wrong with me. Because everybody's meant to like you. If somebody doesn't sign up to a coaching program, oh, there must be something wrong with me because they're not signing up to this coaching program. No. We all find where we're meant to be when we're meant to be there with the people we're meant to be with. And there is absolutely no reflection on any of us. Our deal is to show up and be ourselves and play in the game of life and business. And while we're doing that, people will see you. They will see who you are and what you bring to the world. I mean, I love it. I see my girls like this too. I have 3 daughters, and my middle daughter was telling me a story about she was at some crazy, what do you call these, music festival in Spain somewhere. It's really drunk on a beach somewhere and taking drugs, knowing her. But there she was, having fun, and Nikki has beautiful red hair, pale skin. It doesn't take a tan, a bit like mum. And she was with her friend who took the most glorious tan, dark hair, very sort of Spanish, Italian looking girl. And Nikki said they all sat in a group round a fire one night with about 10 blokes. They were all chatting and having fun. And Nikki said to me, it was fascinating, Mum. They were all so interested in Chrissy. And they weren't bothered about me. And she just said, oh, stuff them, they're lost. And I thought, there's a 19-year-old kid with a strong sense of self.
That's wonderful.
Isn't it? Why do we feel that we should compromise or, inverted commas, prostitute our authenticity to fit in? I don't understand.
Yeah, I like that question. I've had such a different experience to the one you've had because I kind of grew up very never thinking it was okay to be myself or to, you know, fearful of offending people and looking for validation and kind of not really having a sense of myself or my opinions, which is a really odd way to live when it means that you're almost kind of trying to shape yourself around other people's opinions, and other people's opinions change like the weather, and it leaves you feeling quite, you know, quite wrong-footed a lot of the time. And I suppose like everybody else, I had lots of areas in my life where I just had no thinking at all, and that was lovely, and then areas where it looked more difficult or more complicated or something. And what I've found over time, just because we're designed to have insights, like we just have them, we just see things differently. But especially through the principles understanding, what I've found over the last few years is just an increasing just falling away of those constraints, and an increasing like freedom to be however makes sense to me to be in any given moment, and with that gradually an increasing sense of inspiration to do particular things, make a difference in particular directions and stuff like that. And it's wonderful, and it just keeps on giving. But it's definitely it sounds, as I listen to you, it sounds like it's, and I'm not, you know, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, everybody's journey is different. I'm just curious, really. What was I saying then? Yeah, seeing through thinking and seeing through more thinking and feeling freer and freer to move in certain directions and stuff like that. And there's still bits that are sticky to me, and there are still bits where it looks like it's complicated. It looks like something's more complicated than it is. But I kind of know that what that means is I'm feeling insecure about it, or it looks like there's something riding on it. It looks like there's more to it than just trying it out and seeing if it works or if it doesn't. And I'm just curious, I suppose. I didn't know I had a question when I started talking, but I'm just curious, what lets you know to move forward even when you don't have that sense of freedom or inspiration, because it's just cluttered by you know, some overthinking or some insecure thinking or whatever? Or do you just almost never get that kind of thing in terms of your you know, your projects and your business activities and so on?
I think it's a bit of both, Emma. That if I take the how do I know it's right to move forward when I have cluttered thinking about something, that one for me is, it's a playfulness. So if I have an idea about something, but I have a lot of personal thinking about it, I just play with it. I don't expect to have anything at the end of it. I will just treat it as this one great big experiment and then just see what comes from it, knowing that nothing might come from it, but ultimately something else will, or something else might. Because I know going into that experience that more often than not, I don't see it clearly. I don't see it clearly at the beginning. It's like having a conversation. Have you ever, I'm sure you've all had these conversations, and you're talking away to someone and you're sharing what you know. And all of a sudden, you see something more clearly.
Yeah.
That to me is that's the playfulness of not seeing something clearly, but still being free and able and willing to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not expecting, you know, like a 6-figure business to come out of it, you know, or a program to come out of it, or anything like that, or a proposal. It's just that willingness to try to play. It's like a kid with, you know, like, you know, these shapes that they get to put in the boxes and the little holes, and the kids often get the square one and they try and bash it into the round hole and it doesn't go in. And then eventually go, oh yeah, okay. But there's an ease and a playfulness with that. You don't see them having a tantrum.
I really like that analogy, because so often what we do is the equivalent of keep trying to bash the square one in the round hole, yes, over and over and over, and if it doesn't work we just do it even harder.
That's right, and we call ourselves names and we judge ourselves and we think we're thick and everybody else is better than we are, and it's just like, oh come on,
it's just basic geometry, like a square peg won't go in a round hole.
Yes, square pegs don't go in round holes. Just play with it and see what happens.
Yeah.
But when I find that I have an idea to do something and I don't have any thinking around it, it's like getting onto an ice rink and just skating. There's a natural flow and a natural grace and an elegance that goes with that. Mm. It just flows out of me. And that's not to say that that can happen and all of a sudden I can follow my arse, you know, and it isn't right, or something isn't right about it. But again, it's not judging that process. It's just going, okay, leave it and see what happens with it. or even just put it out there and see what happens, you know. It's not the end of the world. I've coached so many people, and you know, they've created programs and nobody's signed up. Nobody's signed up for anything. I'm just like, who needs to know? Who needs to know?
And even if somebody does know, what does it actually?
Years. Yeah. It's not like every time we create something or every time we do something, there's a confessional box that we're all meant to go into and tell the priest we failed, you know. It's seeing these invisible rules and these barriers that we create for ourselves.
Yeah. And being kind to ourselves as well,
Yeah.
because we've been schooled our whole lives to be afraid of failing, that it's humiliating to get it wrong, and it's better to keep quiet and not put your hand up in class than it is to put your hand up and say the wrong thing. And I really think that's changing in education now from what I've seen with my children. And although it seems like there's a long way to go, it's really heartening compared to, you know, the kind of schooling I had.
Yeah.
And with parents like us all, then, you know, what a difference it can make.
Absolutely. And it is, Emma, it's just being playful with it. And not holding on to it so tightly that you strangle yourself trying to do something. And not being so attached to it that it feels like a pair of handcuffs and a ball and chain on your foot. I think that's a habit that many of us get into when we're either creating business or we are in business, or, you know, we're trying to make something happen. You know, and it doesn't have to, it can be a family thing, it can be a relationship, that we can often feel that, again, because of these invisible rules and beliefs that we have, that if things don't work out a certain way, we've failed. And for me, I love failing. I absolutely love it, because it means that I'm going to learn something. And usually that learning of something means that I'll never ever do it again, because I've learned that new difference that I can take forward. So not being afraid of whatever failure conjures up for you. Because again, failure is just another experience that we have in life. If you think about it as being a failure, and you take on all of the connotations and all the beliefs and all the behaviours that you would normally have around the word failure, you become a victim. Whereas if you have a sense of playfulness about failure, with something that you're not holding on to so tightly it strangles you, your creativity will flow from there. You'll see something completely different.
And then you allow the universe to play its part as well, because I think we make the mistake of thinking that we're in charge of it all, and that whatever we don't do won't happen, and that it's going to take exactly the shape that we make it take, and then we're just not actually present to whatever it is that's showing up that might take it in a different direction than the one we'd originally envisaged. Or it feels like when you let go, there's a flow to it that actually carries you far further than when you're holding on tightly, thinking you're responsible for every last bit of the shape it takes and the way it works out.
I mean, that's just keeps happening to me, Emma, time and time and time again. When I gave up the two businesses that I was doing previously, you know, one was sort of public affairs and government affairs work and societal research. And I thought, I hate politics. I hate the media. I just don't want to do this. It's just don't want to do it at all. And so I stepped away from that, you know, and it's one of these things that I really, really was sickened of the whole thing. But I found a year and a half later, companies were coming back to me and saying, Jacquie, we want you to do this work. We don't want anybody else to do it. We're not pitching it. We don't want you to pitch. We just want you to do the work. And I thought, I'll meet with the companies and I'll have a chat with them and just see what happens. And if I like them, I'll work with them. And if I don't like them, I'll not work with them. And what I found was I'm attracting people who are basically really, really nice people who want to work with me, doing that kind of strategic consultancy work. And I'm finding that I'm just loving it. I'm loving it again. There's a real sense of playfulness and joy doing that. Excuse me, cough. But what's been even more curious is there's projects that I want to do in and around health and wellbeing. And I thought, how the hell can I get paid to do this? And then I just left it. And what's happened is a couple of the companies I'm working with now have been, they see how I work, and they see how I work is very different to other consultants that they've had in doing things. So they become curious. What is this? Why do you work this way? What is different? And through those conversations, they want to pay me to do the work that I want to do, which is just absolutely phenomenal. I was saying to Seattle just at the start of this call that I had a client, I worked for a client 2 years ago, and I didn't want to renew my contract. And I said, I just don't want to do this. This was a blue chip pharmaceutical company. And I said, I don't want to work with you anymore. And I left it. And I got a call last week from a woman saying she wanted to speak with me. My name had been passed to her. And I thought, that's interesting. So I had a chat with her today. And from that conversation today, all sorts of possibilities arose about how we could work together, both from a principals perspective, but also from a strategic consultancy perspective.
Brilliant.
So much so that she's actually gone to the European country manager to get him to endorse what it is that I want to do.
Wow.
And it's just kind of like, where does that come from? And that today was just me having an off-the-record, very authentic, very down-to-earth conversation with her about why I didn't feel I could work with the company 2 years ago, the journey that I've been on, how I see health policy in Scotland, where I think the opportunities are. They work in the addiction field. And I spoke about where I saw the potential, and then spoke about a project that I'd love to create. Again, previously I'd have thought, oh, that's fantastic, this is wonderful, this will be absolutely amazing. But this time it's kind of like, that's really lovely, that conversation was awesome. Let's see what happens. I mean, I don't know how many of you have sort of had these amazing conversations with clients or potential clients, and you start to count the dollar bills or how much money you're going to make out of it, and then it falls through flat in its face. I just don't even think about that anymore. If it's going to happen, I'll be joyful when it happens and the first set of money hits the bank, rather than thinking future pace, oh my God, I've got this.
Yeah, it takes you right out of the moment that you need to be in.
Absolutely, Emma. So that's more and more, that's what I keep finding is when I go and I be me, and I'm just me, and I just have everyday conversations with people, whether it's consultancy or whether it's talking about mental health policy with government officials or parliamentarians or whatever, they're just like me. They're just so like me. And there's a story I'd love to share with everybody that, and apologies if you've heard this one before, but this was something I saw really, really clearly. And I'd been asked to go into the Ministry of Defence. They were doing a wellbeing programme, and they asked for me just to come in and have a chat with them. And as I was sitting down in the foyer waiting to go in, a guy came in with his full uniform on, his full sort of, his medals of war and all this kind of stuff. And something inside me I didn't like it. I just didn't like the vibe that I was getting from him. And I didn't feel comfortable. And then in the next moment, this new thought pops up. And it was, oh my God, he's just playing dress up. You know that Mr. Ben used to go into the cupboard and he'd come out dressed and then he'd have his adventures? This is what this guy was doing. He was playing dress up. And every single day, each and all of us play dress up. We go and we do what we think we're meant to do. And sometimes we do it from a place of real honesty and real rawness of being. And other days we do it from a lower level of consciousness. And it's fascinating to watch how you play that game. I call that the Mr. Ben Conscious Awareness Program. You know, you just kind of figure out where you are and what's going on. And you see yourself dipping in and dipping out, and it's oh my God. Yeah. So a businessman, a CEO of an organisation, same as you and me.
It looks like that so much to me these days. It really does.
So I was just going to say, it's so easy to be yourself when you see things that way.
Yeah. I was only going to say that everybody just wants that human connection.
No? Absolutely.
And when everybody's playing dress up all day at work,
I know. So authenticity is just being who you're meant to be in every given moment and just enjoying it, having fun with it.
Jackie, I'd love to see if anybody's got any comments or would like to get on the call or any questions or anything, if this is a good time. If anybody's got a question, just raise a virtual or a literal physical hand or just type in the chat box.
Oh, Alexis's son wants to ask a question. He's cute.
Like the middle of a Kinder egg.
I think I'd be curious to instead of people asking me questions, I'd love to ask everybody else a question.
Oh, I was going to ask a question. Am I too late after wait?
No, not at all.
There's something that I've kind of been struggling with, and I haven't really posted it on any of the Facebook pages. And that's around, I got a really big insight about 8 months or so ago, and I really got and I could reiterate them to whoever I was speaking to, and I was really in the zone, so to speak. But of late, it's almost as though it's gone back to being a head knowledge rather than a knowing knowledge. And I'm just curious to see whether you or anybody else on the course has had anything similar, and whether or not me trying to get back to that place is just me overthinking and maybe stop thinking. I don't know.
I think that's a wonderful question, and I'd say welcome to the human race. That is just, and for me, in my experience, that's just a normal part of my daily experience. I move from my head to my heart, from my heart to my head. And the fact that you're consciously aware of that is the first step in moving into your heart to speak or to do whatever it is that you need to do. And it's no big deal.
Okay, so just stop overthinking it and just go with what I really know.
Do you know what I would say to you? Even stop saying to yourself, you're overthinking it, because it's all thought. Everything that flows through our brains, our heads, is all thought. And when we're in a state of neutrality, when we're in that place of a calm state of mind, a clear state of mind, the thoughts just pass through our head and we don't put any judgment on them. So in instances when I've been like yourself, I had one and I was going to see a politician to speak to him about this understanding. And I had the flu. And while I was sitting waiting to speak with him, I could feel myself going, oh my God, he's not going to get this. He's going to think I'm a complete idiot. I'm going to be talking about spirituality. He's going to think I'm a crackpot. I'm going to get thrown out of Parliament. And trying to think of an intellectual way to say what it was I wanted to say to him. But I was conscious of that. I was conscious of where my thinking was going. And I recognised that it takes two to tango. I can see that, but if I buy into that, then I really get stuck in my head. I can see that and be playful with it and just say to myself, it's just all thought. And it's almost as if there's a softening when you say that and you realise that it's all thought, rather than, oh, I'm overthinking, which to me creates a tension in my body. I don't know about yours. And when I get into that conversation with him, he loved the conversation. Even although my conscious state was going up and down like a yo-yo. Because, I don't know if this is a woman thing, but when you're speaking with people, you think you can read what they're thinking by their faces. Mm. So you go into your head and you analyse what you think they're thinking by the look on their face. And he made a couple of faces, and I thought, oh my God, he thinks I'm an idiot. He really thinks I'm off whack here. And then I just let it go. Because I don't know what he's thinking. I only know what I'm thinking, and what I'm thinking doesn't mean anything unless I put leverage on it.
Because what really got me is when you started talking and you were saying how you're now actually writing your website and creating your business to what you're actually doing. Mm-hmm. And that really struck a chord with me because I bit the bullet. I've jacked in my job. This is my full-time job. And I'm right at the beginning of the journey. And it's that thinking again, because I know that the 3 principles is really where every human consciousness and being, it just is. It's not even a thing you can really explain. It just is. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, but that's really out there. You know what? No. Just do the NLP stuff. Just do the hypno stuff. Just do the... Because that's just too out there, which is almost about face, because the NLP stuff is the stuff that had you have had the inner wisdom and the knowledge or the insight, you don't actually need that stuff. And that's what I'm really grappling with. And I don't know whether or not that's what's making it stay in my head, because I've got the real problem with, wow, I've got to pay bills now. I've got to be responsible for my income now. I've got to be da-da-da-da-da-da-da, instead of just allowing just that to settle. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it does, Nona, and I've been there. I've absolutely been there. And the only thing I'm going to say to you is, who says you have to do one thing and who says you can't do another thing? For me, I would just say to you, be you, and whatever comes from you being you is what you're meant to be doing and how you're meant to be doing it.
It's really weird you saying that. It's just lifted such a big weight off of me.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You couldn't have done that. I love it. And don't try and figure that out, no, and I just enjoy it.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
I was just going to say as well, I don't know if it's relevant in this particular case, but I don't know a single person who, as they've started to see this more clearly for themselves, they haven't had a period where their analytical minds have a hissy fit wanting to keep them close to the tools and the techniques and the models of the world and the ideas about life that are a security blanket, that are familiar to us, and sometimes are getting up in our analytical minds just kicking off, is just a sign that you're about to see something new.
Nona, I spent 1.5 years in that place that you're in. And then I just gave up. And the minute that I gave up, trying to fit myself into a box and give myself a label, everything changed. And I wish somebody had said to me what I said to you tonight 1.5 years ago. In many ways, I'm glad they didn't, because I've learned so much in that period of time. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you. Chris Noonan's just raised his hand. So Chris, I'm just going to unmute you, unless you can do it yourself. There, it should be okay.
Thank you. Now. Thank you. Hello, Jackie.
Hi, Chris.
It's really, you just said the magic word, giving up. Yeah, I could just resonate. That's really good, a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because being a very analytical thinker, usually I was, giving up's really, I can see just about every time in my life I've really given up, I've had great insights.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting in a Buddhist training camp for a whole week and not understanding shit of what was going on. And then I gave up. I totally gave up. I don't understand a word of this. I don't really, it's no meaning. Everyone else is crazy. You know, you seem to, and then suddenly it dawned on me what was going on. And I left it. Yeah. So I was just a very good point. And I think sometimes I can be a slow learner.
Oh, I think we all are, Chris. I think we all have these thoughts where we don't see it. You know, the gunk is still stuck in our heads, and with the gunk is the false ideas of who we think we are and how we think we should be and what we think we should be doing. And when you just give that up, it's so easy to become what it is you're meant to be. And isn't life about learning? Isn't life about growing? Isn't life about evolving? Just because you're doing something now, you're allowed to change your mind in 2 weeks' time or less. You're allowed to change direction. You're allowed to we can do whatever we want to do, as long, in my opinion, as long as we're not causing harm to another human being or another soul, then I don't see the problem in it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then getting into the principles for me was and is, it's like trying to, it's more, I feel there's a greater sense of freedom, because I am not having to hook it up into some context like Buddhism or whatever. It's more like, well, you get the point, yeah, okay, and you can apply it to anything because it's just how things work. Mm-hmm. I really love that, but of course it's on and off, heart thinking, and so on. Because as you mentioned, I like that. The way of saying that, and that's just how it works. That's how we work. Mm-hmm. So thank you for your point.
Thanks, Chris.
Therese wrote, I loved Mr. Ben, that really landed. She said as well, Emma reminded me of the Cloak of Frailty too. We were all playing dress up, and that references to I did a coaching program with Jamie Smart, and the big insight I had very early on was that, not that I was playing dress up with a suit of armour, but I was playing dress up with a suit of like fragility. I was imagining myself to be vulnerable, and when I really saw that for the first time, which I think is a big thing for lots of people, when I realised that who I really am isn't vulnerable to anything, and that was all thought as well. That was huge for me and incredibly freeing.
We create these stories, don't we, Emma? These stories of life and how our life's lived out, and those stories can either be, you know, joyful, happy stories, or they can be like film noirs, you know, dark novels of who we think we are based on what's happened to us in the past. And it's interesting because this afternoon, Amy Johnson and I were recording one of our podcasts for April, and our theme for April is forgiveness. It's interesting that forgiveness is something that a lot of us find easier to extend to other people than we do ourselves.
Sure.
And forgiveness for me is part of the story of my journey to authenticity. And it's really it's part of everybody's story of learning to see who you think you are and learning to be who you really are.
So true. As long as you hold something against yourself, you can't be. You're being the person in judgment of you instead of just being. Yeah, that's such a big lesson for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's beautiful. I so needed to hear all that I heard tonight. I'm going to trust that when I was able to give attention with my little ones around, I heard everything I could. Honestly, it was perfect for me in this moment. Thank you so much.
There's a full moon tonight.
Oh, sit down.
There's a full moon. Yeah.
I love these webinars. No, these little kids come and visit. It's so cute. It's so lovely. I remember when I worked in the corporate field, and kind of like a kid would come in the room and it'd be so tense, you know, that they would hear that I had a child.
Yeah.
Like, how ridiculous! How ridiculous! And how beautiful that you can just be so relaxed. And, you know, I often say that now when I'm on these kind of calls with my corporate clients, and, you know, and a kid comes in, I'm just like, oh, hiya, hello, oh, you know, it's lovely.
Yeah.
It's lovely to be human.
We have so many ideas, don't we, about how things should be and what our roles should be. I was on the phone with a client on Sunday, and she'd asked for an extra session because she'd been suffering so much with her ME, her chronic fatigue syndrome. And about like 10 minutes into the call, I was laughing so much that my friend came into the office because she thought I was crying to see what had happened. And I sort of explained the interruption to my client, and she was like, we always laugh this much. You know, she was saying I laugh more in this hour than I laugh the whole month. And then she said that she was starting to laugh a lot more, and she thought that, you know, her husband said our sessions had saved their marriage or something like that. But when I started coaching, I thought it was a serious business, and I would bring my earnestness to this work, especially with like health conditions and pain and stuff, because it's very serious and stuff. And I'm not saying that we should all just laugh all the time at things, but my ideas about how I should be being in those situations, all they ever did was get in the way of being whatever was right for that person in that moment.
I love that, Emma. I mean, as you know, I don't take life too heavily at all. And I've actually had people say to me, oh, you laugh too much. I don't think you would be good as my coach because you wouldn't take my problems seriously. At which point, I'm almost peeing myself laughing. You know, and it's like, no, it's fine. You find who it is that you're meant to work with. That'll be fine, you know. But like you know, when I was doing sort of the whole NLP thing, it was, oh, somebody's coming to me today with a phobia. and you'd look up all the best ways to treat a phobia, and you'd find it, and you'd write your list of all the techniques that you were going to do and how you were going to do it. And so by the time they got in front of you, your brain was so full of everything you were meant to do and how you were meant to do it. Compared to now, that if somebody's just sitting in front of me, it's kind of like, hi, you know, and you take it from there, and whatever unfolds.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, it's easy for us to become complicated, when really we should just be taking life much, much less seriously than we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what Jeff just posted. Life is far too important to take seriously. Yeah. Does anybody else have any more questions or want to get on the call? We all good?
I've got another quick one. And it's about groups, and it's really advice on how to go about teaching the 3 principles to groups, mainly to kind of teens and young adults. Don't know whether or not you've had any experience doing that.
Yeah, part of my non-profits, one of the programmes that we did was we partnered with Basketball Scotland, and we shared the principles with under 16 girls basketball team, the national basketball team. And then we took the girls into schools in areas of deprivation, and the girls then shared their understanding of the principles with kids who were less advantaged, if that's even the word, than them. I can only say from my experience, Nana, is that have you heard the word intake? Do you know what intake is?
No.
Okay. Whenever I work with a group, whether it's a group of adults or a group of children, it's not always about me teaching everything I know. It's about them sharing with me and me sharing with them.
Wow.
It's about learning who they are and how they see the world. And that's where I take my cue about what I have to share. Whenever I get in my head about teaching, that's something that I'm doing to people. But when I share, it's a collaboration, it's a partnership.
Mm.
Does that help?
No, it actually does. And thanks again for turning my world upside down. What I thought was the right way up now isn't. But yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. Absolute sense.
Just, you know, you've had experiences where you've been in a situation and you don't know what's going to happen. And you've got 2 options. You've got the option of trying to make it do what you think you want it to do. And you've got the option of letting it do what it wants to do. Trusting that if anything happens, it doesn't feel right, you'll jump in and fix it.
That's me. That's absolutely me. Mm.
And it's trusting yourself to know that you can do that, either with humour or with something, a point that's really going to knock their socks off. But when you let yourself be guided to say that or to do whatever it is, you'll do it.
Mm.
I mean, the under 16s that we worked with, the under 16 girls, I mean, you couldn't have been, they were more interested in the basketball boots and the socks we were buying than they were in us sharing at first. But it was fascinating just to get into a conversation of, you know, you've got exams and things coming up and you're about to, you know, to go and play in these international basketball competitions. You know, what kind of gets through your head? What do you guys think of? It's been so long since I was a teenager, you know, let me know what's going on in your head. And they all started to talk about their experiences and how they were seeing the world and why they felt sport was important to them. And that then gave me my end to talk about how I saw life when I was their age and how it was completely different or it was very similar. And from that place of, and I think this is what I love, Nona, that when I'm in any kind of setting now with anybody, when I first meet people, it's two human beings I'm meeting. You know, you can look at it first of all saying, look, oh, here's me, and I'm this person who has this understanding, and here's these kids, and there's a superior, inferior sort of dynamic going on. I don't think like that. We're equal human beings in that room. And the minute that we start to share, we become souls sharing in that room. The connection deepens. Kids, adults, old people, people with mental health problems, people with drug addiction problems are so used to people wanting to do things to them and not see them for being unbroken, healthy, innately well. And that realisation and that conversation is enough to elevate someone's consciousness. And that's what I found.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Jacquie. Have you got time to just tell us a little bit about the programme you're running before we wrap up? Because I know you said we were striking for an hour, weren't we? And we've gone over quite a bit already, but I'd love to just hear a little bit about the programme.
Sure. There's a programme, it's just a 5-week programme that I'm running, an online programme that's looking at authenticity, and it's called the Authenticity Delusion. And it's just sort of looking more deeply into what we've been talking about tonight, but really, really digging deep into the participants' particular roadblocks. What stops you? Where are the speed bumps? What are you not seeing? What are you not seeing as clearly as you would like to see? So that programme is just an online programme, and where that will happen, it'll kick off probably at the end of May. And it'll be there'll be only a set number of participants on it, because I want to keep it small, to make sure that everybody gets the attention, to make sure that everybody gets a chance to really look at things that are holding them back. And I can share stories like I've done tonight and experiences that will hopefully help everybody sort of shift that wee bit more. And the other thing I'm doing is a webinar series, an 8-part webinar series that kicks off next Tuesday actually. And it's called Our Shared Humanity. And it's a programme where I will be interviewing 8 guest speakers, and they're all thought leaders from 3 Principles community. So I'll be speaking with Jamie Smart, Michael Neal, Elsie Spittle, Barb Patterson, Garrett Kramer and others, really taking a deep dive into, to me, which is at the root of all authenticity, is recognising our shared humanity and some of the points that we've spoken about tonight, and that we are all the same. Yeah. We all have the same thought processes, the same issues, and we may just think of them very, very differently. But this live programme is to help people see that we can all make a difference in the world, and hopefully to deepen people's understanding and their grounding, so that they can go out there and do what it is they want to do. So that's my 2 things that are out there just now. The Authenticity Delusion will probably, as I say, the lead page will probably go up later on this week, probably by Wednesday or Thursday, and the other programme is up and live, and you can catch it on my Facebook page or some of the other groups that have to do with the 3 principles.
Best way for people to find out about it.
Yeah.
I loved that. I've said already, but I loved the recording you did with Judy Sedgman as a kind of, it was a kind of forerunner, wasn't it, of the 8-part series? And
Yeah.
it just managed to put into words a sense I've had my whole life, but haven't even thought about articulating until recently. So I really enjoyed it.
No, I'm so glad, Emma. The whole point of the conversations are to ask those questions, to get those sort of spiritual, moral and ethical questions and answers, and just to dig that wee bit deeper than the normal 3P conversation.
But also, everything you just said, and I mean, I don't know if they'll all be like that, but without any unnecessary over earnestness. I was laughing out loud listening to Judy's stories about her skirt getting stuck in her pants, kind of thing.
Yeah, but that's what you want, isn't it? You want people to be real. You want them just to show up as who they are without all the crap.
Yeah,
that's
out, isn't it? All the understanding is to let us be more.
Oh, to let us be ourselves. Yeah, nothing on it. I mean, I couldn't stop laughing. I went down to see Keith Blevins speak in Exeter, and I was in absolute hoots at one point. He said, how often have you sat in front of people in a 3P seminar? They're all speaking so quietly because they're so touched by the principles. And I thought, my God, I'm so loud and noisy and I laugh so much. And it's kind of like we're all touched in different ways. But you can see when somebody's putting that on, that quietness, that the principles have really touched my life. Whereas somebody who's real and really gets it and really speaks from their heart about, where they are and what they're doing. And I love that. I love that he called that out.
And we've probably all been both of those.
Oh God, absolutely. But isn't that the fun?
Yeah.
We were just playing spiritual dress up that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Jackie, it's been wonderful to talk to you. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity and thank you everybody for coming along. It's been lovely. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about being real. I love talking about as many times that I mess things up and as many times as I enjoy things and they go well for me. And I think in our communities, these are things that you would have spoken about years ago as you all sat around the campfire. And it's an art that we've kind of lost. That art of being real and having a conversation and just getting on with life. So yeah, I'm delighted and thank you, and I hope to see some of the people on either of the programmes or all of them, or if not, just keep in touch.
Yeah. Thanks, Jackie, and thanks everybody for joining. I've really enjoyed it.